All right, we're ready. Someone was going to start? Ready to go? Okay. All right, hello. We're ready to get back to it. Welcome to being independent in a codependent world. I don't know really what that means, but I thought it sounded like a good title. My name's Eric Schotz. I'm your sort of moderator here. And I want to introduce our amazing panel. I'm not one big fan of the moderator who introduces people and doesn't really know them. I happen to know these people, so it's kind of easy. But I'm going to let them introduce themselves after I just tell you their great job titles. Greg Lipstone, my agent. This is the longest I've seen him. Just kidding. Greg, I just found out, is head of international television and media at ICM. It's an amazing title. Next to Greg is Sarah Weidman. Although it looks like Weidman, it's Weidman. SVP Development, new series at Style Network, which is the new Comcast giant company that she's part of. David Hillman is VP Reality Programming at Lifetime Television. And next to him is Edward Sabin, Group Chief Operating Officer at Discovery and TLC Networks. He probably has the biggest job of all of us right here. So if you're trying to get cards afterwards, I'd definitely hit him hard.
But Greg won't return my call either, so don't feel bad.
So, couple of things. I'm big on questions, so if you want to ask questions, no problem. We'll hit all your questions because it's really about what you want to get out of this group. I'm going to take them through a little bit of a path, but if you feel like you have questions, just come on up and we'll get you, I promise. So to begin with, just tell us how you got here. How did you get to the job you're in, and what was your most interesting job in television? We'll start with Greg.
Took the 101 to the Fort. It didn't work. Yeah, no. What's that?
I was thinking of the freeway.
Yeah, well, thank you. That's
Not funny.
I started in the mailroom in 1984 at William Morris, and was a product of the really very traditional development process in how they bred agents and created agents. So that makes me, I've been doing this job now for 27 years, somewhere around there. Worked through, got my training at William Morris, spent 21 years there, and worked in just about every area of television. I was a talent agent for a while. I was a writer's agent for a little while. I was a reality agent for a little while. I did some international work for a little while. I did specials. I did series television, scripted and non-scripted, and then moved to ICM 6 years ago. In fact, 6 years ago this week. Been there and set up a new division for them, a relatively new division. And today my business is both scripted and non-scripted, series television, cable, network syndication, and I oversee a department of 9 agents and center all our international activities. Primarily, that is bringing content formats from other parts of the world to be reversioned here in the U.S.
Use the timer. Worst job in television you've had?
The worst job in television I had. Prior to getting into the agency business, very good question. Prior to getting in the agency business, I was a production assistant. And then became a location manager and segment producer, and working in the South in the middle of summer for 3 weeks on location. That was about the worst.
Sarah?
I started in news in the early 90s in Texas and came up through talk shows and game shows. I actually worked for Eric. I don't know if you remember that. On a show called New Attitudes. And I was producing and story producing and got into development out of production. And I started at MTV in development. I was at MTV for 5 years. And then I went to Sony for 2 years. And then I took a year off and worked on some of my own projects I was pitching. I wrote a book. And I've been at Style for 5.5 years, almost half, just over 5 years.
Other than New Attitude's worst job in television?
That was fun. Yeah, no. Worst job. This is going to sound really corny, but I'm eternally optimistic. And even in a bad job, you walk away with something learned. I would say, you just reminded me, like the most uncomfortable job I had was in Houston at the small news channel I was working at, and we were a one-man band. So we literally would grab a camera, go out, shoot it, come back, write it. It was like broadcast news, write it. But Houston is like 100 degrees, 100% humidity. So, running around straight out of college with a camera on my shoulder is not comfortable. I would say it was just kind of sweaty.
David Hillman.
I also started in the mailroom at William Morris and got fired and then moved on to have a very nice career. But it was a great starting point because you realize, this is all about a business. You can be as creative as you want, but you still need to sort of be mindful that it is a business. And I went on to be a producer, and I actually was a producer with Eric at LMNO for many years and had a great run there. And then I actually was lucky enough, I left there and did another show that happened to be for Lifetime, and I just got along with the executives that I was interacting with on a creative basis. And then I went back and I worked on a show with Eric called I Want to Be a Soap Star, and we launched that. And then I got an odd phone call from Lifetime, would you come over and have lunch with us? We want to talk to you about maybe bringing you over as a consultant. We got along with you so well, and you speak producer in a way that we need someone to sort of be that role because we're having some tough times with some of the people we're in business with. And I thought about it and I said, sure, and I've been there for 5 years and I really enjoy this where I sit now, but I never forget what it's like to be a producer and those creative choices that are made because it informs sort of how I interact with our colleagues.
Worst job?
Worst job? I did a show for Eric called Guinness World Records. Worst segment I ever did was handstand foot archer girl, and we wanted to do this very super scary thing, but it was basically she was a carny act from South Korea, and the arrow was not that threatening, and it was a bit of a disaster, and it was sort of on my shoulders to sort of make it interesting. It was a tough, or maybe that show was just challenging because a lot of those characters are challenging.
Edward?
Well, I'm so young, they didn't have mail rooms when I started. It was all email, so I don't know what these guys are talking about. I started off, actually, I went to law school and I was a lawyer. I was a litigator for 8 years, a partner in a law firm here in Los Angeles, in Century City, doing sort of general commercial litigation with an emphasis on entertainment stuff, and felt sort of the Sturm und Drang of litigation and the constant fighting and bitterness was not best suited to my charming personality, so I decided to make a move. What, you don't agree with that? I decided to make a move to television, and so my first job in television was the head of business and legal affairs at a small studio within News Corp. It was called Fox Television Studios. And my job morphed there from being, so business and legal affairs means, you probably know, like negotiating and documenting the contracts with producers and writers, et cetera. My job really morphed more into of a strategy and operations person, launching an international format distribution and production business through Fox, setting up production companies in India, France, et cetera. I did that for a while. And then I spent a short period of time at a independent international television distribution company called Alchemy Television until a former boss of mine moved to TLC and asked me to come along and be her chief operating officer at TLC, which I did. And then as of about 3 months ago or so, I have Discovery Channel and TLC both under my responsibility. So that's how I got where I am.
Challenging TV job?
Well, they're all tied for the worst. So let me try to pick one. It was actually very tough, and it may be a little bit relevant to what you guys are thinking about. Working, you would think you've got it made when you're working at a studio within News Corp because, it's Fox Television Studios, the network must want to order stuff from you. But the reality was it was quite a bitter slog because, affiliated networks sometimes don't like to order from their affiliated studios, especially small, reality production ones, which is what we were doing at Fox TV Studios. So that was a tough several years there.
In our business, and you've seen that these people have been through lots of different stages in their businesses, which is all the independent producers will find that they'll do many different jobs. But the key to being an independent producer, which I'm assuming most of you are in that world, how has consolidation of all the networks affected the independent producer? And I'll throw it out to the panel because everyone has a different take from where they sit. Greg has it from the agent, you have it from Comcast, and Edward has it from in-house and out-house, and David has the same thing. So I'll throw it out to the panel. Greg, you want to just pick it up? Everyone's looking at me.
That was throwing it out. The sort of my approach to this is that the consolidation and everything that's gone on in this business for as long as I've been doing it, and it's happened years and years and years before I started doing it, is that this business continues to evolve, and in the 80s, was late 80s, Edward, when the FinCEN, or early 90s? Late 80s? 80s. When those rules changed, you knew that there was going to be big changes in how business got done. But as agents, and I think for everybody on the panel, we all have to react to and think about how things get done in a new world. And what we find in this business now is every day is a new world. If you look at it day to day, there's not lots of changes. If you look at it year to year, you see more changes, and certainly over the last decade, lots of changes. But it's still a content-driven business, and producers have to create product. Agents get to work with producers on selling product. Content buyers need to buy. Deal makers need to make deals. We all need to do all our jobs and what we do in a structure and a framework, which is where the business is today. Where it's going to be tomorrow is anybody's guess. But as long as there continues to be networks and distributors and cable outlets and syndicators and Netflix and all those kinds of outlets looking for content, producers will create, agents will sell, buyers will buy, and the deals will continue to be challenging, and our job is to look for ways to try and maximize that on behalf of the producers, and the buyers need to figure out how to, I don't want to speak for you guys, but the buyers need to figure out the kinds of content they're going to buy within the structures of what they're able to do, and we need to figure out what we can sell within the structures that we're able to sell. And through all that, it works. There's tons of places to sell content, which is fantastic for producers and creators. Deals aren't quite what they were 10 years ago, but there's still great opportunity.
Sarah, you've just had a big merger. Has it affected your business?
Yeah, probably in a lot of ways that I'm not aware of yet, because it was such a big merger. Comcast merged with NBC Universal. So I was in the family of Style E G4, and they split. So now E is with Bonnie Hammer's side of NBCU, and we're with Lauren Zelaznik's side. So we've now joined the women's networks, Bravo, Oxygen, and Style. So for me, it's really fun. It's challenging and it's exciting because it's a whole new future for Style. I think Lauren has a lot of really great plans and perspectives on what the network could be and what it can grow to be, which is really exciting. As a buyer, I think it's probably more challenging for agents now than it is as a buyer. I think it's beneficial for us. I have relationships now with all the Bravo and Oxygen people, and for me that's helpful. Just to discuss projects, and in terms of content sharing, it's beneficial. We're now running Project Runway repeats, and that's doing really well for us. So we're benefiting from the merge. And it's still new, so there's a lot of changes that are unfolding and continuing to happen. But for us, from where I sit, I see it as a really positive, exciting time, and I'm just hoping we grow. I mean, we're a small cable network, so it's not like we can go down a whole lot. So it's just up from here, and we're really excited.
Okay. You want to add?
Me? Yeah, sure. I think what's interesting is, we were just acquired by AETN, so it's history, A&E, and Lifetime, and all those other outlets. But I think for us, it's, we're the good news for you guys is that we're constantly buying, and this is an idea-driven business, so the good ideas can come in all shapes and sizes from all different sort of producers. And to what Sarah was saying, it's probably more challenging for the agents, but we're all about the great idea. And I think that it's about being creative and clever and sort of taking advantage of new opportunities within the marketplace.
All right, let's go positive, that you guys have all sold your ideas, which is, as independent producers, what you want to do. You've made that. Edward, how hard is it to make a deal these days?
You know, there's always that tension. People, ever since I've started doing deals, I've heard, you know, people on both sides, the agents and producers and the buyers say, God, it's so hard to make a deal. It is hard to make a deal. It's always been hard to make a deal as far back as I can recall. I think, you know, the important thing for me is this is an idea-driven business, which is why I think, you know, to David's point, consolidation can happen, but if you're somebody with a great idea, you know, there's still hope for you. But it's more than an idea, it's the execution of it. So that's, you know, when somebody has a great idea, you know, we hear great ideas all the time, and they really kind of all look and sound very much alike, and what you look for is like, who is that person who's going to be able to deliver and flesh out the idea the way that they're pitching it or the way that I have it in my mind. And, you know, if you have that idea and you excite a buyer about that and you have the ability to deliver it, you know, you're going to have an easier time making a deal than if it's like, I've heard that a bunch of times. But, you know, it's always a slog, it's always a fight, but I don't think it's materially different from my perspective than it has been over time.
Okay. I have an online question that fits in this. If someone has a project that they, as an independent, and they're not quite there yet, what should they do to get how do they find a producer to attach to that project?
Eric Schotz. I don't know if you guys have met him.
I get a lot of those.
This is really one big development meeting.
No, I mean, I could answer part of it is you have to start making the calls and relationships. If you have somebody who wants your project, ask them who they like. All these people have producers they like, and they're different for each type of project. So some people are good at something, some things are good at other things. My answer to that would be simply attach a producer that's appropriate. If you're doing a comedy, find somebody who has some comedy experience somewhere if you're going to attach them. They should be able to add something to the project that you can't do other than just experience. So that's an important part of that. I have another one. This is another online question. I'm working on a production that is budgeted at $8 to $10 million, but we have $800,000 to start. How do I start shooting and monetize my editing budget? How do I find others to raise capital? Greg. This is get even time. I don't even know how to answer that question. If you have an $8 to $10 million, I take the $800,000, go to Mexico. Greg, how do you raise capital? Let's try to make it more generic. You're an independent, you want to raise capital for your project.
You have to find someone to buy it. You know, it's not like the movie business. It is very hard to find someone that is going to finance a project without a sale. And it's a catch-22 because once you have a sale, generally speaking, those buyers aren't going to want to share much, so having financing won't help.
There is no such thing as a money guy, okay? And if the money guy's from Germany, he does not exist. So if you're all looking for the money guy from Germany, he does not exist. I've heard more people say, I have a money guy lined up, he's got the money. Ask that guy for $100, okay? Just say, you're the money guy, give me $100. There's no such thing, it's a bad way to go. Independent producers now have a greater burden that's changed, I think, in terms of showing up with tape, showing up with reels.
Right.
How good do those reels have to be, and what do you expect from somebody who's just starting out to put in front of you? Sarah, let's start with you and we'll go to David too.
Sure.
Well, I think, and this is going to answer a couple questions ago, I think it's important to be realistic about what you've accomplished and where you are, and if you're going in and selling something, understand that people just in general don't like to take risks. So if you've never produced anything, if you've never show run anything, if you've never executive produced anything, chances are they're not going to approve you to executive produce your project. So I always advise people to package themselves, which is what I did. I mean, I had been a vice president of development, but I'd never show run anything, and I was realistic about that when I took my year off to go pitch things. So I packaged myself. I pitched something to Endemol, we partnered on stuff, took it out. I pitched to Allison Grodner, we packaged ourselves, took it out. So I would do that, and also studios, if you want financing. Like independent producers don't finance. Studios may. I don't know how that's changing. You could probably speak to that. But I don't know. Did that answer it?
Yeah, yeah, no, it answers. Yeah, but I would just say to sort of speak to, you're coming in with a concept, an idea, talent, something, a world that you're excited about. Our expectation is we're not expecting it to look ready for television. We just need to be able to see something that gives us the DNA of what you're excited about. And I think we're incredibly forgiving. We understand this is not maybe your bread and butter, but it's pretty inexpensive to go get a flip phone, edit something on your home computer, to give us a taste of what this world is. And I think it's incredibly challenging to bring in talent and have the conversation, and it's great to meet the talent, of course, but they're different in their world than they are in my world or our world. So I would just sort of spend a little bit spend a little money. We're not asking you to spend a lot of money, but I would invest in this in the project because it's going to benefit you, because we'll all see the same show when we're watching it.
The barrier to entry nowadays of actually showing up with a piece of tape is so low. Let's just take a flip cam, it's $100 and you go sit down with that piece of talent. The expectation, at least for us, is, we're expecting people to walk in with tape, whereas, 10 years ago, you'd be more open to like a nice PowerPoint, with pictures and stuff. Now it's like, let's see this person.
Well, everything's so character-based these days. Like, if you just stuck all the housewives in a room and had a flip camera and just let them go at it and walked in with that, that's selling the characters. And we, as buyers, just look for great characters, and we can imagine what kind of stories we would build for them and what you could do for them and where they would go. I would say if you just present these loud, very unique, distinguishable personalities that will stand out on television, they'll speak for themselves, and then we'll figure out what to do with them. But that's number one.
And the only other thing I always sort of, we use a lot of different filters and sort of we're looking at concepts and ideas. And the one that I always sort of throw out to people when they're thinking they have a great idea, I always ask, is that a great segment on a talk show, a daily, or is that a TV series? Is it like a profile piece, or is it a TV series? And just use that as a filter, if you would, just in terms of, is there more there than just what a profile would give you? What are their worlds and what's going to happen? And just have some idea about what you're presenting. Like where does it go? Does it have longevity?
And watch a lot of the network that you're pitching to, so that you know what those stories look like when they're ultimately produced and what.
I can tell you from our experience doing it, we've spent a lot of money and not sold something, and we spent 15 cents and sold something. There's no rhyme or reason. I think you have to manage the expectation when you walk into a network of what you've done. If you're presenting a reel that is not well produced, and it's, you have to explain why it's not well produced if there's a reason. So sometimes you just do a casting. We're taking something. I actually showed Sarah something yesterday that was not what I would call a slick reel. It was, we went out to do a proof of concept. Does this exist? Can it work? We took a flip cam out. We went and shot in real time. And part of the pitch is imagine what would happen if we showed up with cameras. We just went out to see if it was possible. And that's, but we set it up. I don't walk in and go, hey, here's a hot sizzle reel. It's not that. It doesn't have music on it. It's not designed to do that. Sometimes you can do a proof of concept or a sizzle reel, and they're two different things. I don't know if you guys want to talk to that at all as to what those differences are.
Sure. A proof of concept is you have a great idea, construct, and we just need to see that we all see that it actually has the legs that you think it does. And I think a sizzle, is that what's the question? Sizzle and concept. And then a sizzle is, here's a great, exciting, dynamic world, and you're selling the world. You're giving us the DNA of that world, the sort of adjectives that excite you about it.
Tonally, the voice of it. And I think that's important because there's so many different kinds of reality shows, and that it's really the point of view and the voice that distinguishes things. Like something can be like Housewives, or it can be like Intervention. So if you put something together, whether it's a proof of concept or a sizzle, as a producer, what you want to make sure is represented is your voice for the show. Because if you just pitch a log line of something, it's open to interpretation. And there's a million different voices and a million different kinds of shows that are produced. To protect the integrity of what you see the project being, it's wise to really make sure that voice is coming across when you pitch it.
But if you want to be an independent producer, which you all are, then the question is, the barrier to entry is this is something you now have to bring to the table. And in years past, I've sold things on a title. Walked in and said, here's a title, you know? Man versus Beast. Okay, what is it? Man versus Beast, that's what it is. How do you shoot 44 little people pulling an airplane? I mean, you can't really do that on a sizzle reel. Today, you have to do some proof. And that burden, and it makes it more difficult, but if you're not willing to do that, then this might not be the perfect position for you and as an independent. And that's where you become dependent. That's where you walk in and make a deal before you do it and say, I have an idea. I'd like to create a development project with you. And you have to figure out when is the right time to go independent, be by yourself, and when is the right time to merge with an in-house group or another producer. So you guys want to speak to that? Greg, is there a good time to do that for someone?
You know, I think that there's so many factors that go into that. What's the idea? Who brought it? What are the added elements you can bring to it that even the most prolific producers sometimes you'll have a property where you'll want to add another piece of talent or a director, or depending on what the project is. So I think you have to look at each one independently and say, you know, I've got a high quality producer who's acceptable to the cable networks or wherever you're selling it, and this project doesn't need anything else, and it stands on its own, or it may be something where you need to add some additional pieces of behind it to give it some heft. I mean, it is a very competitive market. The great news is there's dozens of places to sell content, but it is very competitive out there, and you always have to go into the room thinking about, how do I distinguish this pitch from the 10 other pitches that Sarah and David have heard that day? And that is the biggest, I think that is the thing you need to think about. Yes, it's great to go in and be able to sell it off a title or without, in the days when we used to do it without tape, and those were great days. But now you have to think about what distinguishes it, what makes it different.
Keep it short. That'd be the other note. Here's another online question, and we're open for questions. If you guys have questions, just coming up at any time. I produced my own sizzle reel for my project. This was my first producing gig. Does that show that I could be a producer on the show that I pitch? Sarah.
No, not necessarily. I think like what your experience is, I mean, that's the first thing we would ask is like, what else have you done? But you know, you could have taken a year to produce a little sizzle, and you know, the reality is we would have needed you to do that in a week. Are you able to do that in a week when you took a year to do something? So it's like apples and oranges, really. If you're a producer who is just getting started, I think we would look at the idea. I think oftentimes we would package you, because we take pitches all the time from young producers, independent producers who don't have big production companies, just have what they believe in as a great idea, and you have to sell that. You really do. All of the things that Greg just said about being distinguishable, what you were saying about do your homework, know what's on that network. The worst thing you could do is go pitch a network a show that they already have on the air. That's the worst thing you could do, because that means you didn't bother watching the network, you didn't familiarize yourself with what's already there. And that's just honestly represents, it's not super professional. So if you are,
it's lazy.
It's lazy. I was avoiding saying lazy.
All right, sorry.
But you want to do your homework. You want to prove that. What?
You say you're nice.
You're nicer
I'm
than
nicer.
me.
Yeah.
It's stupid.
Not only is it lazy,
It's stupid, it's lazy, it's idiotic.
No, I just think go to the
Lazy
website.
is a word we use a lot. It really is. Like, a lot of people are lazy, and what you want to avoid appearing as is lazy. That's the worst thing you could do. So to answer that first question, if you walk in with a pitch and it seems like a lazy pitch, then no, I won't believe that you can produce this as a show.
Okay, before I go to all the questions, Edward, if I spent $10,000 on my sizzle reel, can I recoup that before I do the deal if I make it with Discovery?
it's all, you know, it's all part of the discussion. You know, what did you spend it on? How usable is what you've produced? You know, can it actually go toward making the show that we're ultimately going to make?
And how bad do you want it?
how bad you want it, whether Greg is representing you or a less able agent. You know, it all depends.
But sometimes, I mean, the key to that question is, sometimes that price is the cost to get in.
Right.
That's the cost of the MBA. You know,
Right.
that's what it takes to get in the door, and you're going to have to put up those costs.
Right.
We'll go to questions here.
I realize that the term tape is being used loosely here. And what exactly are we looking for by a tape? Are we looking for a DVD? Or are we looking for a link to a website where everything is? A thumbnail, drive? I don't know.
All of it. I mean, it's just an umbrella term. I just think tape is an acronym. It's a word that we use, but it does mean all those things that you just said under that umbrella.
I still say Walkman, and people laugh at me.
Walkman? Good. Yeah, use a Walkman. That's awesome. Bring in a record player. Great.
If I was coming in, I wouldn't want to give them a link and have them click through. When I walk in a room, I want to know that it works. And do not bring one DVD. I bring 6. And I've gone down to 5 before. I mean, you know, that's the one thing I do is make sure whatever you click them through works.
I have 2 questions. One is, if you're doing something that's a limited series or special, what are your thoughts on doing that as an acquisition, getting independent investors? At what point should you bring in a network to shape it? At what point should you complete it? Could you address that? And I have one other question.
That's a good one for you.
I would not, I think it is a very, very steep uphill battle to go in with something that is fully financed or already made and expect any cable network, broadcast network to put it on. There will be some very rare instances where something like that could happen, but you're in this game of playing the odds, not a great
What if you're sort of hybrid, like you have some international financing and distribution and you want to, you know, bring it to them to shape it, but get advanced sales as an acquisition?
Well, because here's the problem you get into. It's either one or the other. If you have a project that will work internationally, and you've got a distributor on board and someone who's going to make that commitment, then you're best off doing as much work as you can in selling it internationally, ideally getting it made internationally, and then bringing it here, because that will be the only way that you have any shot at retaining any sort of significant or any relevant back end and participation here, and controlling those rights.
Does that affect you and how you make a deal whether they have that or not?
I mean, if you look at the thousands of hours that the Discovery Networks commission each year, you know, just a tiny percentage of them are things that were acquired. I mean, part of it is, you know, the person who's making the decision to buy that wants to know that they're going to be able to shape it and love it, and you know, it's a passion project for these guys too. When they get pitched something, they want to kind of own it, sort of. So if it's already shaped and it's coming from someplace else, you know, it's less there. So it's more of like a business decision. Like you wouldn't even talk to these guys necessarily, at least not at Discovery's networks. You wouldn't talk to the people in their position. You'd talk to others and say, hey, I have this thing. It's, you know, usually it's already commissioned by a major network in another territory, and would you like to buy it for a song, kind of a thing. So that's how it would be viewed.
I have another question, but I guess I'll wait. Yeah, that's fine.
If that's okay.
Hi, Sizzle Reels. Alan Fawcett, Las Vegas. Sizzle Reels. No template. I'm not asking for templates because that's impossible to do because it's a creative process. However, what are the essential elements in a sizzle reel to separate it from concept reel and reality and scripted? And then what are the best reel you've seen, the worst one you've seen? Thank you.
I mean, part of the question is hard because it's how big is the hole. So it's a hard question to say how good's a sizzle reel. A sizzle reel should explain your concept.
Yeah, I think it should be as long as it needs to be to sell what it is you want to sell, so we get excited about that space. So I don't think that, you know, again, we all have ADD. We're not going to watch an hour, but we'd certainly give, you know, I always appreciate the work that comes in with the sizzle reel because I think there's so much passion there, and I think, you know, I would say 5 to 12 minutes, more 5 than 12, but I think that we should be able to get it, and we'll get it pretty quickly. We see a lot of stuff, and I think we'll know right away if it's exciting to us and our outlets, but I don't think you should put those parameters on yourself. You should just be able to sell your concept in that time frame.
So it's something to trigger you.
That's the buyer. I mean, the seller, I would say 4 to 6 minutes max. Whatever you have is too long. Take something out. I guarantee it's too long.
Yeah.
Okay?
Any essential elements?
Well, if it's based on a character, then
Right.
you want to sell the character, and
Right.
that's the most important thing. If it's
Reality?
Yeah,
I
we
like
only do reality.
reality.
We don't do scripted.
Okay, but
But
any
like
essential elements in
what
reality?
you pitched yesterday, as you said, it was on a flip. It was sort of a character-driven concept tape, but the way you edited it sold the humor. Like you totally get like how this is going to be funny, where it's going to be funny, just in how they cut it. It wasn't like it was literally flip video, and he made that caveat ahead of watching it, which is always, as he said, a good idea. But just like you got the voice of it, just in how he cut it, like it got laughs, the juxtapositioning of the shots and whatever. So you want to sell the voice, you want to sell the characters, and just, it really depends on what it is, what the project is.
Okay, thanks very much.
All you do, just don't think you're going to ever throw a sizzle reel in and it works. You need to set it up, you need to play it, and then you need to follow it up, because the next question that they're going to ask, that you have to ask before you even say it, is, okay, I get it, what is the show? That's 100% of the time they will look at you and go, okay, what is the show? So just have that answer. Okay?
Thanks.
Hi, my name is John Edens. I have a question on proof of concept and sizzle reel. It got me thinking, there's so much content out there already that's produced primarily on YouTube. Can you put together a sizzle reel based on, and get a good editor and pull content off of YouTube and edit it and put it together that way? Would you look at that?
Before I say anything, you should go into the voiceover business. I don't know what you're doing as a producer, but that's the greatest voiceover ever. Sorry.
Yeah, I mean, the bottom line is you want to sell your idea. So whatever you need to do that, you can pull off the internet. You can, shoot magazines. Honestly, it depends on what your idea is, and as Eric said, what is the show?
Okay, as far as reality TV, you want to think it out over how many episodes?
It depends on what it is. If it's a format, then we look for formats that have an infinite life. Like, we're looking to build libraries with formats. So whether it's a makeover show or a home design show or whatever it is, then you want to know that that format has long legs and it's something that we'll be able to produce for years and years and years. Like Clean House is a show on Style. It's in its 10th season, and it's just it's been recast and it's moved and it's morphed, but the format itself, it has legs. If it's a character-driven show, then you kind of assume people are going to get sick of that person at some point in time, so it's a different kind of a sell.
Thank you.
I just add slightly to that. The same effort to sell one episode is the same effort to sell 100 episodes. You make a lot more than 100.
Hi guys, my name is Tony. I come from the music video and commercial world, so I'm very new to unscripted, so excuse my ignorance. When I create a sizzle reel that I'm passionate about, that I feel conveys the ideas, it seems like, just looking at it, there's kind of three options. Take it to an agency, perhaps try to get represented. Secondly, maybe take it to a production company and try to partner up, or go directly to a network.
Right.
Which of these is viable for an unknown like myself?
Well, I think it's
What
doing.
would you do?
Yeah, I think it's doing your homework. I think if you have relationships at agencies, have those conversations. If you have a relationship with networks, have those conversations. But I think you're probably better served to be strategic and sort of try to partner up with a production company that you like, and you like their sensibility of storytelling, and start a relationship there, because I think they'll help you. An agent will help you in the marketplace. A production company will help you shape your storytelling concept before it gets to us, because I think you'll get one shot at us. And you want to make you want that to be the best shot possible.
And you may not even get one shot at us. Because the problem is, if you're not associated with somebody that we're familiar with, it's not common for us to just wide open doors. Anybody, it's you got to get to know somebody to get on the schedule and come in and pitch something. So if you have a relationship with a production company, that allows you to do that. If you have a direct relationship with a network, somebody that you know or friends with or something, then that's a different route.
Right? What are your resources? You said you're a music producer. Find out who you did music videos for. Find out who someone knows somebody. Okay? Use every resource you have. If you really want in, you're going to have to work hard enough to do that. And the biggest mistake people do is they don't call. Worst thing that's happened, someone says no. Buyers are in the business to buy. That's what they do. They're in the business to take your pitch. Maybe you don't start at the top. Maybe you find out who works at a level lower, who's the manager. Find a relationship, but call. The worst thing someone could say is no. There's independent producers are all over the place. There were a dime a dozen, unfortunately. But make the calls.
Sure. Can I just follow it up real quickly? Is there a smart way to assess the viability of an idea before even going out and spending money on a sizzle?
Yeah, don't pitch your family.
For sure.
I think do your homework
Yeah.
again. It's always do your homework, which if the idea is similar to a show that's already been on the air somewhere that failed and got canceled, then figure out why did that show get canceled and how, because inevitably if you pitch something and it was, something similar already had some terrible downfall, we're going to say, well, why would we do it? It already failed somewhere else. So how is it different? Why is it different? I would just add to the last question again. If you have an idea that you think is like perfect for Discovery Network or perfect for Spike or perfect for MTV, I would look up companies that tend to work a lot with those networks because they're proven production companies. Obviously, they're network approved, and if they've done multiple projects at that network, then they have the sensibility of the network in mind, and try and get into that production company if you're going to package yourself, because that will give you an in to the network. And I have friends who are producers, and they've said to me, I have something for the Food Network. What do you think of this production company? I'm like, they've never produced for them before. Why don't you start with companies that have produced for that network before? And if they produce lots of shows, then obviously the network likes them. There's a relationship there, and sort of unspoken language. Start there.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Oh, the only thing I wanted to add just one thing, just about knowing the marketplace. I think there's such great access now with Cynthia's and the trades to know what's being sold and what's coming on other outlets, because I think that will help with your concepts as well. It's like, oh, that was just sold at TLC or at Style, and we're not going to buy it. I mean, it's out there. It's already in that space. That's not where we're going to put our resources.
You want to be first.
Yeah.
Okay. Hi. Quick question and a quicker comment that might be helpful to somebody. But how important are the multi-platform possibilities to my show pitch? And my comment in regards to an early question about funding, I've had some success with crowdfunding, which I think is really come into its own the last couple of years for an independent producer. So as far as multi-platform?
Theoretically, people always talk that talk. And more, we're actually trying to implement that and get some real success. But I've never seen a show, at least at the cable network level, that was sold because it was such a strong multi-platform play. I mean, it's about the story and the character, and everything else will sort of follow. Like, don't overthink, like, yes, but you can tweet and da-da-da-da-da, because then I think you're sort of missing the point. I mean, we should be saying, yes, it's all about multi-platform, but the honest truth is it's story and character or format if it's a format show.
It's more important that it's repeatable. And if it's, we can tweet live, that doesn't do so well always in the repeat. So just think about it. We put it in every pitch because we're supposed to, but I agree with Edward. I've never, that's great, we'll buy it for online. And by the way, when you get the contract from Edward, all that stuff is free in your contract. You have to provide all those services. Just note to self.
But when you have a big show, like, I happen to do Project Runway, Project Runway, and there's a great big community of people who want extra content for that experience, for that show. So it's important to us, and it's part of what we do for every season, and we're very mindful of that. But again, it's in a new concept, it's the idea first, and all that other stuff will follow.
And keep in mind also, our job is to put shows on the air. So that's our primary responsibility. And if there's ancillary stuff that comes with it, then that's like gravy. But our job is to produce shows, and there are other departments that handle all of the ancillary stuff.
And when there's a hit, I mean, we're absolutely like, okay, what do we do now? How do we make this work on all these other platforms? But it's never, not the leader of the dance.
I'm going to start to wrap it up, but I'll leave you with, I think it's super important that independent producers exist, because networks want the variety, and that's what independent producers provide. It is a hard barrier to get through, and I think that's one of the things that you should never give up on.
I'm sorry.
Let her take the last question. What the heck? We'll do a quick question. Come on.
This is a very short question.
That was a blah, blah, blah. Anyway.
We know how big the Hispanic community is and how underserved it is with regard to content on television. Does it ever enter your mind, do you ever make a conscious decision to try to look to court that audience, that very lucrative audience, through talent or concept?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
always.
Yeah, always.
We just announced a big initiative, but we also, with the merger, are now sister networks with Mundos and Telemundo. And
Bilingual talent, not just Spanish speaking, bilingual.
The answer is always
Yeah.
yes.
Yes.
Even if
it
it's
is.
not, they're going to say yes.
Well, I know that, but I wanted to see if
No, but it's actually true. I mean,
The answer is
at
yes.
TLC,
difficult to find.
we ordered a 6 or 8 episode docuseries about a family called the Carpios, who I think were from Colombia, and they live in Queens. And there was subtitles through 30% of the show because they spoke Spanish. So I mean that's a tiny example. We also have Kat Von D, for example, who's the star of LA Inc. One of her parents was born in Mexico, or her mother, I think. That wasn't an intentional pursuit of that, but it is definitely something that we talk about quite a bit.
And I think everyone recognizes it's underserved, and I think
Absolutely.
every network is, I don't want to say scrambling, but making big efforts to represent that demographic. And we're running I Love Jenny off of Mundos. We're repeating that on Style because story-wise, it's the story of a mother-daughter, and it's hilarious. They happen to be Latina, and that helps, but the bottom line is that show is a good brand fit for us. So regardless of ethnicity or demographic, is the show a brand fit for the network? Is that personality a voice that works for that network? That's always the first question.
Okay, I want to thank our panel. I think they gave great insight. Thank you. Good luck.